Okay, so today we're going to be working on a machine that has no image on the screen when you turn it on, and it doesn't chime. So since it doesn't chime, it doesn't go dong when you turn it on, is my problem no backlight? Is my problem no image? Or is my problem that there's no life, there's no CPU? It's going to be the third one. That's don't look at it and say it's no backlight when it doesn't chime. Don't say when it has no image on the screen that it's no backlight. And again, don't say when it doesn't even dong that the problem is no image. So this came in with there's a bunch of, I actually already ultrasonically cleaned this. I shouldn't have. I should have showed you what it originally looked like. The CPU and the PCH had both been heat gunned to fuck, and you could see that there was little bits of BGA rework flux around it seeping out from the moron who decided to heat gun this crap before using his brain. So here's what really kills me here. When you look at this board, and again, this came here from another repair store that I'm going to be linking to this video at the end of it. So you'll see that you should see that there are some really annoying comments at the end of it. This is a customer who I'm going to be firing from having as a wholesale customer. Because here's the thing. I can fix this, but you heat gunned the CPU and the PCH. Now, what that means is that there's a good likelihood of that CPU or that PCH failing, meaning that I'm going to have to cover that under my all-inclusive 3-month warranty, meaning you've made more hassle, misery, and nightmare for me because you were an idiot, meaning you can go fuck yourself. So anyway, I'm sure that there's going to be some negative comments here, right? So what could it be? Could it be that my CPU or my PCH died, or could it be that maybe they're not being powered? So let's switch over to the microscope here. And again, this is not something you need a microscope for. I just don't feel like fucking with the autofocus on the camera right now. So if you look over here, what you're going to see is that there's a big spot of what the other guy who works here, he would call this Shrek's shit. I don't know where he comes up with this shit. He always has something in the tickets that makes us laugh. Like, okay, so a little angry goblin ran around this board shitting on everything and things of that nature. But look at this. That is what we would call here Shrek's shit. Now, if we look at that exact part of the motherboard, again, I'm not getting into advanced electronics here. I'm really not. I'm not going to be talking about any... we'll get into buck converters and all that other crap and diagnosing no image versus no backlight later. Right here, I'm talking about looking, eyes, brain. No brain needed. The only part of your brain that's needed here is the part of your brain that decodes what your eyes give you. So in that exact portion of the case, if you were to fit the board into the case, what you'd see is that this part is what shows up. So this is what that section of the board looks like. And let me just use this microscope's auto color correcting, whatever, adjusting thingy to make that look as good as possible. All right? Does anything here look burned? Does anything here look burned? Does anything here look like it had a problem? Do any components here look like they were actually red hot burned at one point? Are any components here missing the metal ends to them that allow them to actually conduct electricity? You fucking idiot. Don't reflow shit without using your brain. I've been doing this video series. Again, in this video series, the last 3 or 4 videos I did were do not reflow shit. And I went through it. When the sleep signal is missing from your PCH or your MCP, all the different things that you should look for before you act like a jackass and reflow something that is perfectly fine. Let's see what that thing does in the schematic. So one of the things I'm going to do here is I want to show you how I know what that pin does and what it does. Unfortunately, when I Google that particular data sheet for that particular schematic, I find nothing, because Apple loves to have the people who create these chipsets for them hide all the information as humanly possible. So let's see if I can find one for a different motherboard that has the same CPU IMVP ton pin. So MAX 17511. Because it's really important to know what these things actually do, and it's very helpful to know what these things actually do, and I want you to be able to see for yourself how you could figure this out. So the MAX 17411 controls the CPU vCore buck regulator. So I can't find what that pin means for the newer chip for that MacBook Air, but I can find it for the regular MacBook Pro of the same year. So a lot of the times you're not going to be able to find data sheets for the chips that you want, but you may be able to find data sheet for a similar chip. So here we're going to go and look for the ton pin. Ton, switching frequency adjustment for input for both regulators. An external resistor between the input power source and ton sets the switching period. Now, here's the whole problem here. They use that same chipset on many different machines. Some machines run off of a 16-volt power supply. Some of these machines all run off of a 12-volt power supply. Some machines like the Macbook Air run off of an 8-volt power supply. Macs, Integrated, and Intersil don't want to have to create all these different versions of these chips for all these different input voltages. So what they do is they allow you to vary it. Oh, but the chip needs to know what voltage it's actually working off of, and that's what the ton pin is for. Without that to set the switching frequency, you will get no switching, which means you will get no CPU V-core. If I were to measure, I wonder if this thing has CPU V-core. Maybe measuring if it has CPU V-core is something I should do before I heat gun it. Let's see what happens if I plug it in and measure for CPU V-core. Do I get CPU V-core or do I get 0 volts? Okay, so I plugged it in and I got my fan spinning. Now you may want to criticize me and say, well, I don't have the heatsink on there. What about the CPU overheating? Well, you know, that's something I should probably worry about if my CPU had any power. So I put the black probe on ground and the red probe on the inductor for CPU V-core, and I got 0.000 volts. And you decided to heat gun the CPU and the PCH. Moron. Further moron, because the last 2 times you asked me about this very fucking issue, I linked you to the 3 videos that I did on CPU power circuits, and you clearly didn't watch them. These weren't like the 1 or the 2 or the 3 hour ones. These are fucking 6-minute videos that you could have watched to learn how to do this. So what we're going to do is we're going to replace that resistor with a new one, and you'll see that I get CPU V-core, and you'll see that it turns on and it works very happy, and the customer will have back a working computer until their CPU dies because you decided to be a moron and heat gun it. Turn on the soldering iron, turn on the hot air station, turn on this. I love this thing. There we go. Nice auto adjust. I'm pretty certain that we don't have a pad left there. Let's see what we can do. That is some oxidized shit right there. So that's all we get. I'm going to clean off the board in that little area. Alcohol and a Q-tip. If you twist the Q-tip instead of rubbing it back and forth, you won't leave fibers on the board, and you won't have to spend the 40 or 50 or whatever ridiculous amount of money it is on those types of Q-tips that don't leave fibers. I'm a cheapskate. I believe in good tools, but I also believe in not wasting money. So let's get my flux syringe over here. Don't laugh at how messed up the tip is, the needle, whatever it is you want to call it, the ends of the syringe. Take a solder with a nice, no clean flux inside of it already. Just not use the end of it as is, because that's kind of nasty. That's a shit stain. That was a shit stain. That was a total fucking shit stain and not worth being used. Okay, so what we're going to do next is just scratch away this little pathway over here. So heat up the flux that I put there. Get that to move away. My head is in the way. Oh, what a prick I am. Zoom out a little. Okay, we're going to get another resistor to put over there. Unfortunately, I ran out in my spool. So now I have to steal it off of something else. Great. Okay, I'm going to open a board view for another board that I know has that same resistor. And hope that I haven't stolen it off of every board. Oh, okay, where? And of course, it's missing from every board in my collection. Aha. So this is the last one left. This is the last one left. Hear that, tweezer hand? Might want to grab the tweezers that actually work. You don't have a second chance on this one. Nah, I think I'll take my chances. I think I'll take my chances. Anybody here ever hear somebody say that before? Nah, fuck off. Nice try. Nice fucking try. Lower the hot air. Lower, lower, lower. All right. I stopped that shit in midair. Get out of here with that. You ain't going nowhere. You're gonna sit your ass down. Bow face, mofo. Okay. Ready, mofo? You fucking ready? Tend the end of the resistor a little bit. Move it back into where it's supposed to be. This is the holy grail of wire right here. CNC Tech magnet wire. Part number 600234. Then it also says under magnet wire, MW35-C. This is the holy grail of motherboard repair wire. Oh, I've been waiting so long to figure out what you are. I'm not used to using magnet wire. I honestly never used this stuff before. Truthfully, I really have no feel for it. So I'm pretty clueless as to what I'm doing here. What I'm even trying to do here. That's a clusterfuck, but you know what? That's actually exactly what I wanted. That was my first use of magnet wire ever. I'm sure it'll get easier and better as time goes on and I figure out what the fuck I'm doing. I don't really have the technique down to use magnet wire very well. So yeah, what I did is I just extended that over there. A nice, happy looking extension. Do you think it's going to work? Do you think my CPU will be good? Okay, so this LCD cable is fucked. So I'm going to have to use another assembly to show you that it has CPU V-core. Yeah, I'm going to have to replace backlight fuse. Oh well. That's easy enough. I saw the Apple. It's really tempting to just tell you to trust me that it works, but that would make this as lame as every other video on the internet. Alrighty. Fuse actually blew. Very surprising. It never blows on the air. The LCD connector is what blows on the air. The LCD connector is your fuse on the retina and the air boards. Why am I such a damn perfectionist? This is such a disease. I've talked about why being a perfectionist is bullshit, but I don't follow my own example very often, which is not good. Okay. To find an air assembly. Okay, so much for finding another air assembly. I did find another air of the exact same year on the table over here that I'm working on, so I'm going to use that just so that you don't think there's any funny hijinks going on or me making shit up and using a different board. This is the board with the magnet wire. That's me holding it right here. No editing funniness. I'm going to plug this in and you're going to get to see that it works. And you get an Apple logo on the screen. And that will be that. Should also make sure that there's no short to ground inside of that LCD connector. When the LCD is plugged in, that would be smart now, wouldn't it? And unfortunately, there is. That makes me sad. Okay, so what I'm going to have to do, is replace the LCD connector. Motherfucker. All right. I was hoping this would be a short video. Love this auto adjusting thing. That's beautiful. Fucking piece of crap, man. Sometimes you can not measure a short, but then when you put the LCD screen cable in, you'll get a short to ground because something inside the connector is mucking it up. Oh yeah, look at how unprofessional the Q-tip is. Look at all the fibers the Q-tip is leaving on the board. God, again, one of the things about having 10,000 subscribers that I notice is just everybody knows everything. It really that's what happens is that I wake up one day and I realize that everybody knows everything. From just you can tell from the comments that I get now on here. Like I've never done this before. But yes, you can see we have a pretty clean work surface now. Take a new LCD connector and put it on there, and we should be fine. Awful. I am an awful connector solderer. That is just disgusting. That is a fucking joke, man. Oh my god. Let's put the right tip on, for fuck's sake. Put the right tip on. The right tip. Okay, I got my nice curvy tip. Thank you, Apple, for deciding to put whatever the fuck that thing is right next to my LCD connector. Very much so appreciated. But the solder travels to the heat, so you don't touch the solder over there. I sneak under it when the flux is there. I press hard against the board. I'm making sure that I'm pressing against this so that it's nice on the board. And then that's that. And the solder just gets sucked. That's solder without an L to piss off the trolls. Where it's supposed to. Okay. So as always, I'm going to do this properly, and then when I give up on going properly, I'm just going to drag it all the way over. And one of the things you're going to notice with the iron tips that you use is that the more micro the iron tip is, the less accurate your soldering temperature is. So I'm putting this up to 840 now because I know the tip of my iron is very far from the 700 that I have it set to. And I know that I'm not at 840 right now at that tip, especially when I'm using it. It's beautiful. But I got flux on the end. But I can't really... There's not enough space here for me to heat the tip. I mean, heat the pin, the pad, and the solder at the same time. You see that? For traditional soldering where you're supposed to like heat the joint and then flow solder in, how the hell are you supposed to do that here? Like really? There's no space. There's no fucking... You can't. So you have to have the solder already there and then kind of shove it in. Which means that, you know, it's not going to make a proper joint because the flux is going to be already heated away from the solder. Which is why if you have flux already there, you're set. So that's why I'm adding flux. That's Amtech 559 right there. It's good stuff. The real Amtech 559 is good stuff. Now some of those are not actually soldering on the top. And you may be about to point out that it's not soldering on the top and that's fucked up. And I get you. But I'm going to be dragging over the entire thing anyway, which is why I don't really care. Oh god, that's awful. So as I said, I do one pin at a time until I make a god-awful mistake, and then once I make that awful mistake, I stop caring, and I drag. This is what this beautiful bent tip allows me to do. So I go like this. Whee! Whee! Like a kid on a swing. And once it starts to get crusty like that, add flux and remove. Gross. Too much solder. When I fucked up, I put way too much solder there. Might as well just use some wick to get it off. Okay, now we add some flux. So there's still excess solder there because the wick didn't go all the way up. I'm just going to take that excess solder. Now add it back to my pads with the new flux. And because I'm a sick perfectionist, the first pad, even though it's nothing, I'm going to care that it's not soldered right. Because that's just the type of warped lunatic that I am. Come on. See what I mean about tip temperature when I'm touching a pad with a high thermal mass? Doesn't want to go. And at the ends, yeah, I guess I'll solder the front pad properly. Since you're going to troll me if I don't, you know. Okay. Let's heat up the flux to make it easier to clean away. Take two. Measure for a short to ground before we turn it on. Ta-da! Don't heat gun it. All right, so this is what you have on the LCD connector when it's done. So after all the flux has been cleaned, that's 45x. At 45x, the table wobbling is really obvious. That's the resistor. And that's what we did to get it to the trace where it blew. Pretty nice, right?